Last year, I made a video about Sonic.EXE, where I went through the history of the series and looked at some of the newer games that have come out since the series' resurgence back somewhere around 2020. Now the problem was that there was a lot of stuff to look at, and I didn't even cover the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the newer content, since there weren't just new games, but countless of entirely new interpretations of the character as well. So naturally, I got a lot of comments asking why I didn't cover this game in the video, or that I should have looked at that version of the character instead. So you know what? I did. I researched pretty much every version of Sonic.EXE that you guys recommended to me, and one thing I noticed real quick is that the power scaling of these characters is all over the place. Some of them are eldritch beings that were born in dimensions that exist outside of time and space with the goal of enslaving the entire human race, while others are just ghosts that like to bully kids. So it got me thinking, how many of these EXEs could I personally beat, or at the very least survive? Now, there is one very simple answer to this, since every single version of Sonic.EXE without exceptions has one incredibly obvious weakness: battle rap. But you see, the problem is,
I'm not a rapper.
So I had to come up with some more creative solutions. So I made a small list of Sonic.EXEs that I think I could either beat or get them to piss off and bother someone else. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. What I'm going to do is I'm first going to explain a little bit about each character's backstory, like what their motives are and their various powers and abilities and stuff like that. And then I'll tell you exactly why I believe I could easily survive all of the hyper-realistic crap that they could possibly throw at me. So, with all that said, enjoy the video and let's get right into the first one. X is the original version of Sonic.EXE, who was created by JC the Hyena all the way back in 2011. X is a being that was born in the Void, a dimension that exists outside of our space-time continuum. He is an interdimensional being driven by an instinctive lust for destruction and pain, and has the power to control all of reality within his realm.
Hey, guess what? I am a god!
His ultimate goal is to one day absorb our dimension into his, and enslave the entire human race in the process. Now, this all sounds very scary, and admittedly it kinda is when you really think about it. But there's a catch. See, X isn't powerful enough, or at least not powerful enough yet, to fully cross over into our dimension whenever he wants. So to counter this, he either made or manipulated someone into making a game that acts as a portal between his dimension and ours, and put it on a CD-ROM disc. This game, of course, being Sonic.EXE. Anyone who installs and plays the game will basically open a portal for X to come through which he will now rip the soul out of their body and drag it back into his dimension, making them his slave for all of eternity. So, how does he get people to play this game? Well, there's this cult, the Cult of X, which is a group of people who believe that the world and humanity would be better off if it were to be ruled by and absorbed into X's dimension, which they believe is some sort of paradise. They basically do X's bidding and try to assist him in his plan of taking over the world. And one of the ways they do this is by passing the Sonic.EXE game on from victim to victim. They do this by stealing the game every time a person gets killed by X, and then reselling it in a random location, like a game store or a pawn shop or online on eBay or something like that. They then keep track of whoever buys the game, and when they eventually get killed by X, they steal it back again and continue the cycle. Now you might be thinking, what could I, as a mere mortal, sleep-deprived human being, possibly do against this interdimensional entity who is pretty much a god in this universe? Well, if you were to for some reason come after me specifically, absolutely nothing. I'd be dead, powerless. I'd be like a little kid in JC the Hyena's DMs. Just no chance of survival whatsoever.
Brother,
But the thing is, he can't do that. He can only attack those who play his game. And it's important to note that the game disc looks like this. Now please tell me, who in their right mind would willingly play, let alone pay money and buy a game that looks like this? Well, definitely not me. There is not a single world in which I would become the proud owner of this disc unless someone were to hand deliver the thing to my house. And even then, there is no way I would ever install any executable files that were on the thing onto my PC, not knowing where or who it came from. However, X thought about this as well. He is well aware of how shitty and unappealing his game looks, so to solve this problem, he created what are known as the 7 Guardians.
What the hell is even that?
These Guardians are essentially extensions of X himself, and each one of them has the power to manipulate one specific human emotion. What they basically do is every time someone comes across this game in any way, let's say they run into it at a pawn shop or come across it while scrolling through eBay or something like that, they manipulate that person's thoughts and emotions into making them want to buy and play the game. So even if you were to initially think the same thing I just did, these entities will eventually manipulate you into buying the game anyway. However, let's say, right, hypothetically, that I were to somehow come into contact with this disc, and these Guardians were to manipulate whatever is left of my critical thinking skills into buying this scuffed ass looking game. Even then, there is no way I could ever play it. Why? Because my PC doesn't even have a disk drive. So unless this thing can be played on a PlayStation 2, there is no way that this hyper-realistic goober could ever touch me. So go bother someone else. Next! No More Innocence is by far the most evil version of Sonic.EXE out there. Like, no competition. I mean, at least most other EXEs do what they do for a reason. They have some sort of end goal in mind. Even if it is something as evil and selfish as enslaving the entire human race, at the very least they're working towards something, right? They gain something from doing the evil things that they do. But this guy, he doesn't even have that. He just does what he does because he enjoys causing people psychological trauma. That's literally all he does. He doesn't even kill his victims. He just swoops in, gives you PTSD, and then moves on to the next person. And as if that wasn't bad enough already, he doesn't just go after anyone either. Oh no. No, Innocence prefers to target a very specific demographic of human beings. Kids. Yo, JC man, this you? He specifically targets children and takes away their innocence by exposing them to great evil at an early age, which is how he got the name No More Innocence. So what actually is he? Well, No More Innocence is based off a type of spirit that exists in Japanese mythology called Onryo. Onryo are vengeful spirits who for various reasons were unable to successfully cross over into the afterlife and are now forever stuck in purgatory. Because of this, they still have a strong connection to the realm of the living and are able to physically manifest themselves in various different forms, such as people or objects. They have no more remaining purpose other than to torment and take revenge upon the living, and that is exactly what Innocence does. His first recorded appearance was all the way back in 1992, where he would disguise himself as a Sega employee and hand out supposed demo cartridges of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 at various events throughout Japan. People would then take these cartridges home and give them to their children, not knowing that they just gifted their child a literal demon. He would then proceed to get these kids completely addicted to the game. So addicted that they wanted to do nothing else other than to sit down and play the game. They'd barely eat, drink, or sleep, and whenever their parents would check up on them, they'd insist that they were doing just fine, to just let them continue playing the game.
Get the fuck out of my room and play
Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
And if for some reason they did want to stop playing, Innocence would just flat out start threatening them, telling them that something bad would happen to them or their loved ones if they did. Over time, this lack of food and sleep and the constant threats and manipulation would eventually cause both physical and psychological harm to the kids. And this is usually when Innocence would start tormenting the parents of the kids as well. He'd reveal himself to them and gaslight them into believing that they were directly responsible for the situation of their kids, because after all, they were the ones who brought him into their home.
You're mocking me, aren't you?
Oh, no.
Look, your kid is dying.
Where?
So yeah, like I said, this guy is just straight up evil. He does what he does simply because he enjoys toying with people and seeing how much psychological trauma he can cause them in the shortest amount of time. Despite all of this though, I don't really think I have much to fear from him. See, while I usually have trouble accepting the fact that I'm getting older, I guess it kinda works out in my favor this time, as I am in fact no longer a kid. I'm an adult, baby. I've been paying taxes for 7 years already. And trust me, that's not a brag. That's just me trauma dumping. And since Innocence likes to target children, there is absolutely no way he'd ever be interested in me.
But what the hell, boy?
But Ramster, didn't you just say he can come after adults as well?
Well, yeah, parents. But guess what? I don't have any kids, and I don't think I'll be having them anytime soon either. I mean, the world is already a mess as it is. And trust me, the last thing it needs is for me to procreate. So unless his ass can somehow physically manifest some opposable thumbs for my sweet baby cat and get her addicted to the game, I don't think he'll be very interested in coming after me anytime soon. And even if for some reason he does, you know what? That's fine too. I can take him, because I know the one true weakness of any ghost. Vacuum cleaners. And I got one of those. I mean, I barely really use it, but I do have one, so this guy doesn't stand a chance either way. He can't touch me, so go bother someone else. Next! Hog Scorched are a very unique and interesting take on the EXE concept. They're basically two different versions of Sonic merged into one body, with one always fighting the other for control of it, kinda like Bruce Banner and the Hulk. The story goes that someone once rewrote the code of an original Sonic the Hedgehog game to create a cheap bootleg copy that they could then resell. In this bootleg game, pretty much every Sonic character was replaced with a cheap knockout version. But the developer made a mistake when trying to remove Sonic's original code and replacing it with this new knockoff counterpart, Hog, as some of Sonic's original coding was still in the game after the bootleg was completed, his code now overlapping with that of Hog's. The Sonic that remained, however, was no longer really Sonic, but rather a broken and corrupted version of his former self. And he was absolutely pissed at Hog, because unlike most other EXEs, Hog and Scorched aren't actually aware of the real world. So Sonic blamed Hog for destroying his world and replacing it with his own. He became this hatred-filled, vengeful entity, residing deep within the code of Hog, determined to one day take revenge on both Hog and the rest of this new world that replaced his own. And that is exactly what he did. One day, Hog, this innocent, friendly creature, was just living his life, hanging out with his pals, Prowler and Fists, when all of a sudden, the original Sonic somehow found a way to take priority over Hog's coding, allowing him to take control over their shared body. He manifested himself as this decaying, werewolf-like creature and called himself Scorched. He then went on a complete rampage, destroying everything and everyone that was near and dear to Hog, forcing Hog to watch the destruction of his homeworld from behind his eyes, powerless to do anything about it, just like he was forced to do so long ago. Now, like I said earlier, neither of them is aware of the real world. But let's just say, right, hypothetically, that they were to somehow be transported into the real world, or I were to somehow be transported into theirs. Could I then survive, or possibly even take them out? Well, within their game, Hog is a fully programmed and completed character, whereas Scorched is just some leftover code of the original Sonic. And while there is clearly enough code left behind for Scorched to remember who he once was and to have his own thoughts and emotions, he's not a completed character whatsoever. He needs Hog's programming in order to physically exist. So if Hog were to die or get removed from the game, the remaining code of Scorched would pretty much be nothing but a consciousness without a body. And because of that, I think I can safely draw the conclusion that if Hog dies, Scorched effectively dies as well. And luckily for me, Hog is completely harmless.
The fuck you say to me, you little shit?
He's an incredibly friendly and trusting individual, so all you really gotta do is wait until Hog's in control of their body again, and then just walk up to him and engage in a bit of small talk, and he'll most likely be happy just to be able to talk to someone. So just ask him something like, "Hey man, how you been?" And he'll say something like, "Oh well, I've been better, you know, I mean, I have this evil entity living inside of me that forced me to kill all my friends, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. How about yourself?" And that's when you try to shift the conversation a little bit and say something along the lines of, "Yeah man, I've been doing pretty good, all things considered, thanks for asking, but hey, have you heard about the thing though?" And then he'll be like, what do you mean, what thing?" And that's the exact moment when you catch him off guard with your Second Amendment rights. Really, the only thing that could possibly make me fail this incredibly well thought out master plan is my conscience. I mean, look at him, he's adorable. But you know what? It's a cruel world out there, man. A survival of the fittest, as they say. And sometimes you just gotta get your hands dirty and do things you may not be proud of just to be able to live another day. And while he definitely deserves better, Hog unfortunately has to go in order to ensure my survival. In the words of Big Daddy Thanos, the hardest choices require the strongest wills. So Hog, I'm truly sorry, man, but I'm gonna have to take you out. F's in the chat for my boy Hog. You will be remembered. And those are pretty much all the versions of Sonic.EXE that I think I could easily survive. Honestly, I'd probably get pretty much insta-killed by any other version if they really wanted it. But if there are any versions that I didn't include in this video that you think you could easily survive, or if you think I was wrong and underestimated any of the ones that I did include, then be sure to let me know in the comments. Anyway, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, then thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy some of my other videos as well, so be sure to check them out here. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully, I'll see you guys in a future video. But for now, I'm out. Later, people.